This is Coffee with Kelly, a dynamic podcast that's dedicated to driving positive change in school safety. I'm your host, Ethan Woodman, Product Marketing Specialist for Crisis Go, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Kelly Moore, Senior School Safety Specialist for Crisis Go. Our mission is to empower you with essential knowledge, tools, and inspiration required to foster a safer and more secure school environment. We hope this podcast will be the catalyst for transformation in your schools. Join us as we continue to dive into the world of school safety. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Ethan. 'Tis the season.
Tis the season.
Probably won't be the season by the time you hear this, but 'tis the season right now.
Probably, yeah. I don't know if it'll come out right on Christmas week or what.
Yeah, I don't know.
Might be after.
We'll see.
Depends if our editor takes
time
how
off.
many days off he takes. How's your regular cowboy coffee?
Very good. The way coffee was meant to be.
I mean, okay, so I normally drink it black, but sometimes I like to get a little fancy. So some of our friends gifted us some of those like Lindt chocolate balls, and there's like a variety of different stuff. And today I found like a peppermint bark, whatever kind of one. And
I'm gonna hold you right there, because when this is a potential trigger description of his coffee. I've heard it, and it may cause some physical and emotional trauma when you hear what he did to his coffee. Proceed.
Yeah, so you first put the chocolate ball in your coffee cup, and you pour your hot coffee over it, and you stir it until the chocolate ball is completely melted into your coffee. So now it's kind of like a mocha, basically. And then I took
and it was
eggnog.
what kind of ball was it? It was a peppermint. Was it white chocolate peppermint?
No, it was milk chocolate with like a peppermint
center
type of thing to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I have a milk frother, and I put eggnog in there, and I froth the eggnog and put that on top. And I tell you what, that was the most Christmas flavored coffee I think I've ever had. Still a little bit left in here, actually. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's the trigger. I'm not sure, because first of all, you have to like chocolate peppermint in your coffee, which a lot of people do. Then you have to like eggnog in your coffee, which I'm guessing there's not a lot of people who do that.
I'm telling you, you got to try it.
Hey, what's the spices or the that you use in eggnog?
I know some people either will use nutmeg or cinnamon.
Yeah,
I prefer cinnamon over nutmeg.
Nutmeg. Anyway, it doesn't sound.
I could have sprinkled cinnamon on top of that
with a little whipped cream and hold your pinky up while you drink.
Yeah, but if I had whipped cream and then I started drinking that on the podcast, then it would just be like all over my face.
Oy vey.
Man.
Another trigger warning I should have.
All right. So, this last weekend, whatever.
Crazy.
Was quite insane, to say the least. So I guess I'll start off with the one that probably the entire world knows about, quite literally. The events that transpired in Australia. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I mean, some people are referring to it as a terrorist attack. I would probably equate it to that. So, two gentlemen, it's actually
father and
son. Basically opened fired on a Hanukkah event. So it's very anti-Semitic kind of stuff going on. So it's quite terrible. I think like 11 people died, and there was like 40 people injured. And obviously it's a different country, right? And they've got different laws. And I mean, I've heard that these guys were shooting for like 10 minutes
for a long time.
Before a civilian came in. I'm assuming it's a civilian that ran and basically tackled the younger attacker.
It was actually the older guy.
Was it the older guy? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, and took the gun away from him. There, and the other guy, that guy got up and then ran. And as I understand the chain of events, picked up another weapon, and that's where you see at the end of because there's
That's right.
another
I think
video
he
showing
grabbed another
the end
weapon
of.
from his son.
So
Craziness, and
yep.
so I remember seeing some in a video where they're like the shooters ended up on like a catwalk that went over like an interstate or some roadway, and then there's like stairs obviously, and like the people were like crouching down on those stairs, and then there's some other people that were like hiding underneath like look like lawn chairs or something. It's crazy videos.
Yeah.
It's just like I feel like in like why it's interesting that was it's either run hide fight ish, right? So that's kind of people's mentality. But it surprised me of how many people didn't.
Run. So it gets back to we've talked about this before, but it's been a while, and it's how humans respond to crisis, right? So our protective actions during this type of event are run, hide, fight, and you know how I feel about calling it run, hide, fight, but it's different in this setting than it is in a school setting, right? Because you don't have all those options available to you if you're responsible for 30 other people, right? You may, but you don't always have those options always available.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to adjust. And in a school setting, that's why the vast majority of experts recommend lockdown, secure, in the standard response protocols as taught and practiced by I Love You Guys. Yeah, I Love You Guys Foundation. But there's a response. There's a human psychological response. We often call it, now I'm going to blank on it because I'm old, flight or fight or freeze. I'm going to call her a young lady because I don't know any otherwise, who did some research a while back. And her name was Amanda Ripley, if I remember correctly, out of Texas. I think it was Texas Tech or Texas State University. I forget which, somewhere in Texas. She looked at those responses and said, those are responses, but flight or fight. But there's a psychological process that causes those. And that's denial, deliberation, and then decisive action, right? And the denial is it's not happening. It's something else. It's completely, cars backfiring, fireworks, what have you, right? And then the deliberation is once you realize that it's happening, what do you do? Sort of the freeze stage. And then there's this decisive decision. And when we talk about reducing the reactionary gap, what we're trying to do is one, get rid of denial and start thinking not exactly what was that noise, but what's the worst case that noise could be, and start acting upon that worst case scenario. So you hear a noise and you say, that could be gunshots. I need to get out of here, right? And so you go from that denial through deliberation to decisive action at a very quick pace, right? So we try to get people to do that. Some of the problem is people don't understand the difference between run, hide, fight and those psychological responses, right? So, and they don't understand hide doesn't mean under a lawn chair.
Yeah.
Hiding under, and there's real psychology to that, right? And when the psychology, if you haven't practiced or you don't practice looking at options and being vigilant and looking at your surroundings and understanding your environment, understanding situational awareness, if you don't understand all of that, sometimes you revert back to childhood behaviors because children have a way of simplifying things so that they understand it. So hiding under a lawn chair during a gunfight is the equivalent of this. You don't see me.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where our public has to start looking at what are viable hide places. There's a difference between concealment, you can't see me, versus cover, which means you can't shoot me, there's a protective barrier there and moving or getting out away from the area. So it's one of those things that we have to really consider when we're talking about what actions do we take in a wide open space, right? So, and how do we transition that to a school setting is what happens if that happens or that occurs during a football game when you're in a wide open space, right? So now you have to think about denial, deliberation, and decisive. They call it the decisive moment when you decide to act. If you are thinking that's gunshots and it's not, what's the worst that happens? You went to a protective action, then you discovered it wasn't gunshots. But if conversely, if you say that was a car backfiring and it turns out to be gunfire, that has consequences to it potentially.
Yeah.
So
and, hiding underneath the bleachers is going to be concealment, not cover, unless
that's right.
you know.
But sometimes concealment, psychologically speaking, sometimes concealment is all you need. They've done studies where they put a visual barrier between somebody who is shooting. They can see their target, and then before they shoot, they slip a barrier down, a visual barrier, but they don't prevent the gun from firing or firing in any direction. And there's a significant number of people who, with the barrier in front of their face, have to look to see what they're shooting at. Right? So there's a psychological impact there when you put a visual barrier between you. Most people, if they don't see something, they're not going to shoot at it. Right?
Okay. Interesting.
So concealment is an option. And we do it all the time in schools. Locks, lights, out of sight.
Yeah.
Most of those schools are not ballistically paneled. While they have pretty thick walls, they're often cinder block or concrete construction. There's still doors and stuff. Rounds can go through, shots can go through the doors in most cases. But I mean, sure, they're solid corridors and stuff. But concealment is a good thing. Hide is a good thing. It's better to have cover. But sometimes it's not available to us.
So
I just don't know how you can conceal yourself completely underneath a lawn chair.
Yeah, it was hectic to say the least, and it was just painful to watch. It's like that was really 10 minutes. That must have felt like forever.
Yeah. And that's
a long time.
It's a long time, and that's a law enforcement response, right? There was no indication this was going to happen. It was at a crowded beach. Right now is their summertime because they're in the southern hemisphere. But I don't know if it was like a holiday or anything like. I don't know how that all works.
Well, it's the start of a holiday for Jewish. It was a Hanukkah.
There's a Hanukkah. But it was also right there at the beach, right? Or no?
Yeah, it was kind of in this open area.
Yeah, and that's why it's important. And people, and this just kills me sometimes, but people always say that's awful that you have to live like that. Because I try to remain vigilant and I try to look around to see what's going on. The other day,
sure people call you paranoid or something like that.
Sure. So, but sometimes, for the most part, I look around and people don't even understand what I'm looking at. Like the other day, I literally caught myself looking up in the rafters at a hockey game. Why? Because I've been physically present, but witness to elevated shooting positions. People who've taken elevated shooting positions, right? Like in Las Vegas and so forth. So I know that that's an advantage. And I also know that the people who are, and it's no fault of their own, but the people who are running the metal detectors at that type of venue, very low level hockey game, that they're likely not the most vigilant in the most thorough in their searching of people coming through those doors, or, sure, at the main entrances.
They're
What
probably
about?
not a very well. Typically, they're not a well experienced
They're not well trained. They're low paid.
person in that field. Usually, that's kind of like a entry
Checkbox.
role kind of thing.
It's a checkbox, is what it is. They're keeping honest people honest for the most part. And I do it all the time, and it becomes habit, right? And when I go out to places, I take a couple of seconds, stop what I'm doing. I'll look around and see what's going on and understand where I'm at and understand what options are available to me for the most part. And I'm pretty sure that I've never been in the situation, so I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that I would understand what to do if something like that were to happen. But my first choice would not be a lawn chair.
Yeah, I don't think it would take 10 minutes in America. I feel like that would be a lot shorter of an event.
I think you're over. I think it very easily could take 10 minutes.
You think so?
I don't think.
I guess it depends on where it was.
Where it is, and I mean, even in some urban areas, there's. If you look at Los Angeles as an example,
Yeah,
where they have 10,000 deputies. Obviously, not all of them are working at any given time because they're working, and then you have another. I don't know what LAPD is. Let's say 10,000. New York City has 35,000 cops, but they're not always there, right? And even if they are there, typically they're busy and they have to drop whatever it is they're doing and get to wherever it is. In some urban areas, not every police officer is in a car, right? Not every officer has that kind of training where they're going to go up and start confronting. So I think it was the Covenant's shooting, 14 minutes.
really?
I think so.
Wow.
From the time the first 911 call. And what people don't understand is, and we've talked about this early on, and it bears repeating here. Response time is not the time it's not tracked from the time you press 911. Generally speaking, response time is tracked when the law enforcement officer is dispatched, because they can't respond if they don't know about it.
Right. They're not accounting for, tell me your location, what's going on, what's your
That's right.
name. And that's
So
typically what, like a 5-minute conversation?
it depends on the status of the call center. It depends on the status of the callers. As an example, when the 911 calls that were coming in during the shooting that I was involved, I was the incident commander for in California. We had over 2,500 phone calls into the 911 center with 5 or 6. I think when they're fully staffed, there's 7. And I'm not 100% sure that they were fully staffed that weekend. I don't remember, but 2,500 calls. And so it's changing, but was very typical. Are you calling about the shooting? Yes. Are you calling about the shooting? Yes, we're aware. Thank you. Calling about the shooting? Yes. You need anything? No, just reporting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 2,500 times. What was not picked up on, and it's no fault, absolutely zero fault of the dispatchers, because this was the first time that this occurred. Our suspect was driving around. And after we understood that the suspect was driving around, then they started picking up, where is he? We're getting a report from this area. We're getting a report from this area. Some of those reports were deputies. Some of them were citizens calling 911. But it's trying to figure that all out is very, very difficult, right? And then trying to pass that information on. And I will tell you, as you know, in early January, we will officially be launching Crisis Go Connect. And the purpose of that release, that feature, is to bridge that gap, right? Is when because we're pre-configuring alerts, right? So 911 is a generic system, meaning you don't have any idea what the caller is going to tell you when they pick up the phone at the call center. You have no idea. You just know that you likely have a problem at a certain location if they're up to speed on technology.
Mm-hmm.
So most of them are. I don't know of any that aren't, but I'm not going to say everyone has that capability because I know how slow public safety moves. But when you press an alert that's been pre-configured and they get it, they at least have an idea. And when we're talking about school safety, when they hit that panic button, they understand that that panic button is generally associated with an active shooter. So they get that notification and they can start immediately saying, we're getting an alert for, and this is what you need to do. And then based upon their training, what is it that they normally do? But the other side of that is if we pre-configure alerts for law enforcement and the call centers to understand what's coming, they can pre-describe what their response package looks like, right? How many cops am I sending? How many fire department personnel am I sending? How many ambulances am I sending? If they start saying certain things like we have a mass casualty, right? So in most areas, mass casualty is defined as 4 or more. Some use 5 or more. So, but once you say those words, that opens up a whole new level of resources, right? And I can pre-configure it to alert the hospital. I can pre-configure it to hit the PSAPs, the call centers, and say, here's your package. And this is what we believe is happening because of the way that this was pressed. And now we've reduced the need for the call center to sit there. Are you calling about the shooting? Yeah. Yep. Doing that 2,500 times.
That's crazy.
So it's one of those things that I think is going to be revolutionary to us and how we do things. And fortunate for us, we can expand that functionality to different organizations, right? So look at it as almost like a robbery alarm at a bank. We're getting a burglary alarm or whatever, right? But it's direct. And when you press that button, that means shots have been fired or shots are about to be fired or something like that. Big difference, right? So, but you could do it with sporting events. You could do it with board of supervisors, offices and meetings and municipal buildings, churches. You could do all of that stuff if you have that capability. You can allow other organizations to enter the thing. And the best part is that you can pre-configure all of that stuff and you could invite and track mutual aid people and really become part of the solution and participate in how an incident is being run. So this is the actual intent of Alyssa's law, right? So we've talked about this before, so we're not bringing up anything new. Alyssa's law is meant to, the idea is to get law enforcement to the problem as quickly as possible. They kind of fall short because they don't understand the technology and they don't think about all of the other stuff that has to happen. Just get them there is half of the problem.
Yeah. Where are
But
they
it's half the
going?
problem.
Who are they going to?
Yeah, it's half. Getting them is, I should have said, half the solution. Getting them with knowledge and understanding of what's happening is much better.
Yes.
They're still going to have to work through the problem, but understanding what is happening and where it's happening is a much better picture than just saying, oh, we got this panic button, because we know that panic buttons get pressed when people panic that aren't necessarily active shooters. I'd rather have that than the other way around. But yeah, so 10-minute response doesn't think doesn't make me say, oh, that was a long time. It's a long time when you're sitting in the middle of Bondi Beach taking rounds, but it's a response time that seems pretty reasonable to me.
So, also on the same day, we had a shooting at a Ivy League college campus.
Yes, we did. Oy
I feel
vey.
like, yeah. So this was on, both these events were on December 14th, which is also the same day as
It's the anniversary of Sandy Hook.
anniversary of Sandy Hook.
Yeah. So we talked about this in the last, I think maybe two. We brought it up in the last two podcasts of how I know it was because there was one that was averted, as they call it in the business, for December 1st, right?
That's the one we covered last time,
last
right?
time, yeah, in Texas, right? But it all centered around the conversation of when are you most likely going to see an event, an active shooter, active violence in your schools. And the FBI did a study several years ago now, and I have no updated data, but I also have no reason to think that it's any different than it was reported at the time. But you're more likely, there's a significant increase in the opportunity or the odds that you're going to have a shooting or some sort of act of violence in your schools immediately following within the first 2 weeks of returning from a break in school. Okay. So then the next most likely time that you're going to have an event like that is on an anniversary date. So, as you can suspect, the most popular anniversary date for these events is for April 20th, 4/20th. That was the anniversary. That's the anniversary date for Columbine. So, when you start looking at those, and in this case, it applied to of those, right?
Yes.
Is the return from school, and within that 2 week is right at the tail end of that 2 week time frame of returning from school and on an anniversary. And the significance about this, and I don't know why I'm getting all of a sudden the feed here, or it may be my algorithms changed in social media. I don't know, but I have gotten a lot of videos, a lot of accounts of this particular shooting, and I don't think it's any secret. So I'm going to use the name at Brown University, and it's had a lot of coverage. The coverage is what it is, but here's why I wanted to talk specifically about this today is the importance of understanding what's happening, right? Here's your quiz for the day, for the week.
Oh boy, for me.
Yeah, this is going to be an easy one.
Oh, hopefully. Thanks for setting that up for me.
Right?
You could have said this could be really hard, Ethan.
Yeah, this is going to be super difficult, Ethan. I hope you can get it, my little Padawan.
Oh man.
But
all right,
what are the two things that people want to know during an emergency?
What's going on and what do you want me to do?
That's right. So
you're like,
here's what if woohoo, you got it. But here's what concerned me, and I'm going to qualify this. If all of the stories are true, it's social media, so we understand, and we're going to address this, but we understand a lot of stuff are assumptions, conjecture, made up stuff. Many people have a very specific agenda, so we understand that. But that doesn't mean that some of them aren't true. And there are some of them that are out there that I'm saying, I think this is true. I think this is. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am. But here are some of the reports. The shooting occurred, and it was 15 minutes before they sent out an alert to lock down. 15 minutes is almost a waste of time.
Yeah. I mean, geez. I mean, a lot of these shootings in there, they're over within 2 minutes. By the time they start shooting.
The average is less than 8 minutes.
Yeah.
right? And some of them are longer. Some of it, like the one at Bondi Beach, there was a 10-minute shootout,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you have these other ones that are over in a matter of seconds. Waiting for 15 minutes to put somebody into a lockdown is crazy just absolutely crazy in today's world, especially with the number of mandates and requirements in higher education, with the Clery Act and understanding what happened in Virginia Tech. And I think it was Virginia, I'm pretty sure it was Virginia Tech, and how that all was integral in pushing for emergency notifications at the higher education level. There's much more mandates at the higher education level than there are in K-12, right? So you have to be able to notify students in college of a, a threat to them, right? And we had, with our school, our college, our university in our area, they were following it so strictly that they were actually impeding some of our investigations. When the threat had stopped, in one case, we had discovered a body, and they pushed out a thing saying, "Hey, we found a dead body. Use caution." The extent of the status of the body was such that it probably happened a couple days prior to, right? But all of a sudden, they send their whole campus into panic. But that's just to illustrate how some of these schools interpret the requirement to push out alerts, right? And so waiting for 15 minutes to push out something that needed to be done in a matter of seconds
I was gonna say it needs to be like
silly.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's silly, right?
Wow.
So then there was another account. One that I thought, and we talked about this a little bit, I thought was interesting, not for me so much as for our listeners, our viewers, our schools, was what happens when law enforcement starts their evacuations. There was a video being taken of a bunch of students, and these are adult students, mind you, in a classroom when the cops show up to evacuate them, and they walk through that process, which I thought was interesting. And it's good to, if you haven't seen it, go look up the incident. I'm sure you'll find it in one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of videos that are being posted. It's one on the evacuation, and it will give you insight into what you can expect when law enforcement comes into this highly charged environment. And as of right now, that at the time of this recording, they have not identified an official suspect. They took one person into custody, but ended up releasing him. I don't know that they fully cleared him, but they've released him. So obviously they didn't have enough to hold him. But I don't believe that's going to end up being the suspect. I think the physical characteristics are not a match. But that being said, we're 5 days out from the actual shooting. 4 days. Is that right?
3 days.
3 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So this is the 4th day.
Oh.
They still haven't figured all of this out. And when these kids were in their hide, they were transferred to another location, right? And they were in lockdown, and they were transferred to another location and put in, according to some of the people who are posting, put into another lockdown, but in a larger area where they could not necessarily be in a lockdown. So they were probably more in a secure than a lockdown, but they were saying that had been locked down. One young lady who was posting, said it just as an update, and she goes through her update and had posted it with the intent of targeting her family, so that the family got it. You could tell that she was kind of talking to her family. And it was a few hours, if not several hours, after the incident. But she was in the building where the shooting occurred and had left minutes before. And then she got told to go into lockdown, and she was in like a gymnasium or like a weightlifting workout area. She was a collegiate hockey player, and I think she was doing her workout. So she was there, but then she couldn't leave. So she'd already been in there, and then a later update in the morning at 1:30, almost 2 o'clock, if I remember correctly, they finally told that group of people that they could go home.
You said this was like 9 hours?
So it was, I believe the incident occurred late 3 p.m., 4 p.m. ish. I think it was right around 4-ish, but I'm not 100% on that. And so we're now talking, even on the early side, 1 o'clock. I think it was closer to 2 o'clock that they were released. So the incident at 4 o'clock, 8 hours to midnight, and then another hour to 1 o'clock, etc. Right? So just that they're in this status and they're not understanding what's going on. There's no communications there. They were just told to sit there. So, when we talk about communication and the two things that people need, no one ever needs it just once.
Right.
Right. So you need to know what's happening and what you want them to do.
On some type of
Scheduled
frequent basis.
Yeah. Yeah. And it should be fairly regular. And you should have a way to do that. If you're going to be in a lockdown or a secure status for 9 hours, some of them were, and she posted later that she was already released when she posted that second video I talked about. But some of those kids were in that status until 3-ish in the morning. So now you're talking 10, 11, almost 12 hours, right? And many of them are like, we don't know what's going on, right? So how do you tell people that are in a protective status, a lockdown, a secure, whatever, and how do you communicate? Hey, this is what we're doing. We're apologize to them. Hey, we're sorry about the delay. We know we're keeping you a long time, but it's for your safety, and this is what we're doing. We are now searching the entire campus. We will get to you as soon as we can. And then half hour later, hey, thank you for your patience. We're doing this. We're trying to get maybe identify where everyone is, where the groups of people are. We're trying to get you some water, some snacks, whatever. Just kind of keep them informed. And then that reduces the trauma. Keeping somebody in a lockdown position or a secure position for an extended period of time with no communication, all that does is increase the potential of traumatic impact based upon this incident. And I feel for this young lady, because you could see the more she talked about it, the more stressed she became. It was starting to hit her, right? And so if we're not communicating properly, then we're increasing the potential impact. Right? And
we talking about impact. You're talking about like that long lasting impact.
Traumatic. Yep.
After the fact.
One of the other ones I saw, but I'm not 100% that it was real. I don't know how to check that. But it was on Instagram. It was a young lady who had actually been at Sandy Hook, was a student at Sandy Hook Elementary.
And then what?
Was now a student at Brown.
That would be nuts.
And so when you're talking about that, now you're talking about somebody who's already been traumatized and is now a victim again. We have to understand and take into account, and regardless of whether or not that, and I should know this, and I apologize that I don't. Sandy, do we know what year Sandy Hook was in?
Was it 2019?
No. It was 13 years ago. So 14 years ago. So 2011-ish.
Okay. There was a shooting on November 14th, 2019 in Santa Clarita, California.
Yep. Yeah.
that
So
there was
maybe that's
someone
the one I'm talking about. Maybe I'm getting it
there was
confused.
so there's when a
Yeah.
gunman shot and killed 2 students and injured 3 others. So this person, their best friend had died in that event, and she personally was shot in the stomach. And so now she had experienced that in 19, and then again she was in her dorm room this December 14th at Brown University and got alerts eventually about
Yeah. So Sandy
this.
Hook was in 2012, right? But either way, the point that I'm about to make is valid still. With all of the concern about the number of school shootings, and I don't want to debate school, the fact that they're increasing or decreasing. We've had a significant number of them in the past 27 years, close to 27 years since Columbine. And we have to start realizing first, everyone at that school and that in that community were impacted to some extent. And we've talked about the culture of victimization and being victimized and almost being celebrated as victims, right? But we have to start realizing that the people who are involved in those events are now college age, right? So those that were at Columbine high school, so they're mid-teens, mid to late teens, and you add 27 years to that. And so they're adults, right? So they're older than you are in the workplace and having families, but they've been traumatized. They've already passed for the most part, past the college ages. But what it means is every year we're having people come into our schools that have been or into our higher education that have been traumatized by these events. And they're still trying to work through them. And now they're being victimized, traumatized a second time. How we treat them and how we provide security and safety for them is got to be one of your top priorities. It just has to be. And because it's a known commodity. And if you are just sitting there, I mean, if you listen to some of the press conferences and information and interviews that are being posted with the mayor, the chief of police, I think she's called the president of the university, then you understand that there's a deer in the headlight kind of response to this. They were not prepared for this. And I'm saying at all levels. The political, the law enforcement side of it, they were not ready for this. And when we talked about this before, and this is another reason that I am so happy that we are in this process of developing Crisis Go Connect specifically, is because sure, the tragedy is the tragedy, right? But how we manage those and how we respond to those is just as critical, if not more so, in how that event is going to be remembered in the future. The legacy, how people remember it. And I'm not going to say how people are going to remember this. It's too early for that, but I could take a leap. And it's like one of the telling questions is somebody, an interviewer, a journalist, reporter, asked the president of the university what was happening at the school at the time. And this is 6 hours after. And she says, I don't know what was going on. And he just looks at or just responds to her and says, you're the president of this university and we're 6 hours after an event and you don't know what's going on? Take control. Manage this incident. And I'm not saying manage the cops in their response and the medical people in their response and the investigation. Manage the university. Lead that university. Talk to the parents. Figure out, get answers to the questions, and start managing that incident from the school's perspective. I don't know how many times we've said it. I don't know how many times we need to say it, but obviously we need to say it more, is leadership matters.
Mm.
and how you lead and how you work through crisis, and I'm talking true crisis, is leadership. It's important that you lead that campus. And I have not seen an interview with her or the mayor, or haven't really seen anything with the actual an actual interview with the chief of police. So I can't comment on that. But there's nothing in there that instills these are good leaders.
Yeah,
These
not
are
a lot of
people I want to lead in you know in my emergency.
not a whole lot of transparency there.
Nope.
Feels like. So you
Nope.
were, in addition to the previous person that had experienced a prior shooting at Sandy Hook, there was another student there, a sophomore, that was outside of the middle school during Parkland. The middle school and the elementary school shared a field.
And the Saugus school, right? The Saugus High School shooting in 2019. And I remember that. And the reason I remember the Saugus shooting better than I do most is because my sister lives about 2 blocks away from them.
Mm.
And she wasn't there at the time. She was at work, or she was away. She was doing something. I forget exactly what it was. And I, as soon as I heard, I texted, "Hey, are you okay?" And she goes, "Yeah, why?" And so she hadn't even heard about it yet. So I said, "This is what's going on at the high school that my niece went to, just down the street from their house." And so I explained to her, and she was concerned because she wasn't going to be able to get back to her house. So I just said, "Go. There's a park by their house." And I said, "Just go to that park, and they're going to have that's going to be the staging area, and that's going to be the reunification site, and that's going to be where citizens who can't get back to the house need information and so forth." And so I was able to direct her, and sure enough, that's it. And I didn't know that was official, but I just looked at the map and said, "Okay, this is where I would do it." Right. So I remember that whole incident very specifically. So, but I've forgotten that girl was from the Saga shooting. But they're college age, right?
Crazy that it's like, to experience it once is
Rare,
rare, and then to experience it twice in a lifetime, it's
right?
wow.
Yeah, and to travel from literally one side of the country to the other and experience it on the other side of the country, it just goes to show, you
Yeah.
know, it is so rare that we talk about it all the time, and some people get tired of us talking about it. And I've explained why it's necessary to talk about them, but the probability that you're going to have a shooting at your school is very small. But we know that it's going to happen again. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're
Yeah.
on. It's going to happen again. And if you look at this weekend, we actually had another shooting, and there's some people who are trying to connect it. I don't know if it's connected. The shooting at MIT
I
that
saw that too.
happened again also this weekend, and some of the circumstances are similar, so they're trying to connect it. I'm gonna wait until I can officially connect it, because there's a lot of things that could point to that, but I don't know yet. I think it's too early for us
Initially,
to
it
really.
seems somewhat targeted,
It's
specifically to.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similarities in the profiles of the victims, and the connection with MIT being in close proximity to Brown and so
Hmm,
forth. So, is MIT officially is that an Ivy League school? I don't know all of the Ivy League schools.
I don't either.
Yeah,
Would
but
surprise me if it
I mean,
is.
it's right there in one of those
Yeah.
prestigious.
Yeah.
And the difference here for me is that was in his home, I believe,
Mm,
not at the school. So there's some things that make me question it. We're going to have them again. And I don't want to get into the gun issue, because we also have had mass stabbings. We've had people planting bombs. People running over people. In my case, it's not really my case. It was handled by lots of people. But in that instance, he shot people, he stabbed people, and he ran people over.
It's like whatever thing he had at hand.
At the time, and to this day, it's still considered mass shooting. When in fact, everybody, it was write down the exact numbers. So there were 6 innocent people killed, 3 by gunshot, 3 by some other method, stabbing, right? And there were 14 people injured, 7 by gunshot, 7 by some other means, being run over, being targeted by the car. And it doesn't include he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but we don't count those numbers. But it's not remembered as a mass murder or a mass casualty event. It's remembered as a active shooter situation, more so than the rest of it. So, and then to have somebody who's victim of it twice,
That's
is crazy. The odds are crazy that would occur. Yeah. But like I said, it's about management and communications and getting people the right information at the right time. And from what I'm seeing, the incident lacked a lot of that. How it was managed, and I don't know all of the ins and outs of that, but holding people that even in a university the size of Brown, which is not a huge university, it's well known, but I think the students are right around the 10,000. Not everyone was there, but even a university that size taking that long is significant.
yeah.
That to me that screams of mismanagement or lack of management, lack of leadership, lack of direction, lack of understanding. So we should fix that.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions about what we discussed, leave a comment on our website at crisisgo.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Coffee with Kelly, a discussion on school safety.